day 14 of 31 for the 31 Days of Horror Halloween. And we're still in the 1980s. We're going to the year of our Lord / year of our Satan, 1985, with a film by Wes Craven, which is generally considered to be one of his lesser offerings, The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Now, watching this film independent of the original, you're going to walk away with a different connotation than if you watched it, back to back with the original. Now, I think even Wes Craven himself, God / Satan rest his soul, I would probably say that his film, the 1977 original, was really just sort of a lucky Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff. I mean, clearly that was what inspired it. Kind of doing the same, rural people taking them city dwellers to task. I mean, pretty much the exact same storyline, except it's out in the desert and they're radioactive and it's in California, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, what do you call that genre anyway? Like, it's a subgenre? Like rural horror, maybe, I guess, would be it. But anyway, it's got a pretty popular cult following among genre fans. I've never really been a huge fan, but I can appreciate it for what it is. You go and you watch The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, and you're going to be very, very disappointed because a lot like, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, I mean, half the movie is just flashbacks to the original. I mean, there might be like 50 minutes or 45 minutes of actual new footage in this movie. The rest is just, going back and, recapping what happened the first time around. And this time around, I mean, you got some of the survivors from the original film. They're out, they're dirt bikers now for some reason, and they hang out with a dirt bike crew, and, there's really boring characters. I mean, they have no personalities, they're all cannon fodder. And they go out to the desert, and what do you know? The Hills Have Eyes people, led by Michael Berryman and his giant forehead, are still out, running around, doing whatever hillbilly mutants do. And it's very predictable, it's by the numbers. It doesn't really have sort of the shock and awe from the first movie where you're like, oh god, they're going to kill a baby? Is this dude going to eat a parrot's head? I mean, it doesn't really have anything along those lines. This is one of those movies where I think it's really kind of tainted by the fact that it actually probably cost too much money. I mean, it looks way too polished. It's like the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie where we have like the Tom Savini designed leather face mask. It's like, no, it's not Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's no way an inbred Texas mutant could have made that. And I think that's kind of the problem with The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. It just looks too glossy. It looks too produced. That's the thing. The horror film is probably the only genre I can think of where it actually benefits from looking unprofessional and just kind of tethered and tattered. And this film, just looks, like I said, way too sanitary for its own good. As far as the pros, well, I like the soundtrack because it's by Harry Manfredini. The same guy did the Friday the 13th soundtrack. So it's a weird combination. You've got like your traditional Wes Craven style horror, but you have basically the soundtrack from Friday the 13th playing. And I mean, it really is the soundtrack from Friday the 13th. I mean, they just loop it over. I mean, there's hardly any changes at all to the formula. So it's kind of weird and entertaining. But yeah, I mean, there's really no excitement. I mean, it's your standard guys running around the desert, one of the things I really didn't like was that this time around the mutants are a little bit more civilized. Like, they speak in complete sentences, they can rationalize things. I mean, they're not out there, stalking people because, they're just, inbred guys who don't know any better. They're just doing it out of, revengeance, and, I use the term revengeance. It's early in the morning, I can do that. Just basically out of spite and just being no good and all that stuff. So I think that kind of makes it less appealing. It doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't have the idea that it's like a force of nature, or it has the deliverance angle where it feels like, this is modernity, getting hit for, all of its industrialization. So it's not really high on subtext, which just points off. And of course, the movie also has what has to be like one of the worst examples of foreshadowing in any 1980s horror film. Like, it's very early on where this guy's driving an RV and he's like, hey man, check it out. We have a brand new motorbike fuel. Yeah, it's going to make you go super fast, but watch out, it's also really explosive. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And you're like, okay, well, we know what's going to happen now. And Yeah, it's just very lazy. You know, Wes Craven says it's one of his worst movies, and I have to agree with him. He's made a lot of good flicks. This is really not one of them. It's really disappointing. I mean, there's really no reason to watch this one. It has nothing to the Hills Have Eyes mythos. It's just there. I mean, go watch the original or watch one of the better Wes Craven movies. This one is just, I mean, it's not like 100% terrible. It's just kind of there. You forget it like 5 minutes after it's done. So it's a very unmemorable motion picture. So I'm going to give it a paltry 2 pieces of candy corn out of 4. Like I said, you could do way better. Other films out there you should try. And Wes Craven, he's done way, way better. Go check that stuff out instead.